Have you ever owned a piece of Militaria that gave you a case of the willies? It happened to me back in 2018. As a military historian, it's perhaps inevitable that I occasionally acquire objects from the conflicts I study. My bookshelves have the odd World War I and II helmets or medals or munitions now relegated to ornaments. They have become just part of the decor of my study. Occasional talking points. However, back in 2018, I acquired on a whim a helmet from a conflict I'd had little interest in up to that point, the Gulf War of 1990 to 91. Of course, I remembered watching it on TV. I was 17 at the time, and I'd noticed at the time and in the later 2003 conflict that Iraqis appeared to be wearing US M1 style helmets. Having examples of M1s from World War II, the Korean War and the Vietnam War on my bookshelves, I thought to myself that an Iraqi M1 type helmet would round out the collection nicely. So I went looking. As you can see, the helmet I picked up on eBay isn't an M1 at all, but some kind of inferior clone. This is, in fact, a rather unique Iraqi design called an M80. They were closely styled on the US M1, but incredibly weren't made of steel or Kevlar, but some sort of fiberglass. Saddam Hussein's army had these helmets manufactured in South Korea. It has a dull olive green finish and a liner and chin strap very similar to that of the M1 that it obviously emulates. Obviously the M1 came in two parts, a steel outer shell and a separate liner. The Iraqi helmet is all one piece, with about as much protective power as a builder's hard hat. No wonder Iraqi troops surrendered en masse. My helmet was a genuine veteran bring-back as well. The seller told me that as a British soldier serving in the conflict, he had taken the helmet out of a bunker, where he had found it sitting on top of a crate of mortar ammunition. The previous owner's name appeared to have been written in Arabic with a biro on the liner. I was very happy, and the M80 duly found a place on my bookshelves directly behind my desk chair. But then it started. My study began to take on a funny aura. It sounds daft, but my previously tranquil sanctuary started to make me feel uncomfortable. I started to experience a strong feeling that I was being watched from behind me. It was a feeling that I recognized from some time before, when as an undergraduate in Cambridge I'd had digs in an old house that had on occasion an oppressive and disquieting feeling about it, including if one was alone, of being watched. That dread feeling was now back and in my happy home. Every time I sat down at my desk to work, the feeling returned of being watched, and it seemed to be emanating from this innocuous object that I had recently put into the room. When I left the room, the feeling immediately stopped. I told myself initially I was being silly, and left the helmet in its place, but after a few days, I found that I really couldn't stand being in that room. I started to search on the internet about haunted militaria, whether anybody else had ever experienced anything like I was experiencing, and lo and behold there were plenty of stories. I'm sure some of them are BS, but I think quite a few were quite genuine. People had experienced strange reactions, strange sounds or strange feelings from certain helmets, daggers, swords, uniform objects. And it's hardly surprising really. I mean, many of these objects have seen great violence and have been involved with death. Keeping them in your house, on the face of it, seems, well, bad luck in many cases. The worst of it happened for me one night, a few nights into the strange phenomena in my study. I got out of bed to fetch some water from the kitchen on the ground floor. Many of you, I'm sure, like me, are able to find your way round your own home with very little lighting, or none at all. I made my way down the first staircase from the bedroom to the first floor, and as I passed my open study door, that feeling once again assailed me of being watched. But this time, I think because it was nighttime and the house was so quiet, with just the moonlight coming in through the study window, the feeling seemed much stronger. There was a palpable atmosphere, a kind of pregnancy in the air that something was going to happen. I stopped and peered in. Nothing moved. Everything was as I had left it, but the feeling wouldn't go away and seemed to be growing stronger. I think at this moment, if my wife had called out my name, or if my cat had brushed against my leg, I would have jumped so high to hit my head on the ceiling. And that was another thing. My cat used to like my study, but had stopped going in there and refused to sleep in there anymore after the helmet arrived. Cats, they say, like dogs, often have a sense when something is amiss. I gave up on getting some water and went back to bed, and I was determined to deal with this problem, to get rid of this object. The next day, I started preparations to sell it on, and soon it was out of my house. Once that object was out of the house, these inexplicable feelings left with it, never to return. Peace has returned to my study. The cat started to sleep in it again, and I've never owned or handled a piece of Militaria subsequently that has affected me so badly. The violence of the First Gulf War is well known, the huge Iraqi casualties well documented. I can only imagine that the M80 helmet was taken from a bunker where Iraqi conscripts had died horrible deaths before their time, and perhaps somehow it carried these feelings to my home. Anyway, I did not encounter a ghostly Iraqi soldier standing in the corner of my study, or strange mutterings in Arabic in the middle of the night. It was more subtle than that, but equally unsettling. So, I'd like to hear from you in the comments section below. Have you ever owned something, particularly Militaria, that has caused you disquiet, that you think might have been haunted? I'm sure this will generate some very interesting comments. Happy Halloween, and many thanks for watching.